With that being said and done, I'm going to pass it off to Monica and Gina so that they can introduce themselves a little more thoroughly and get our presentation started.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to share my screen with you all. You should see a nice bright hello. And as Miranda mentioned, my name is Monica Occhetti, and I'm CSI's Manager of Certification and Volunteers, and I work remotely from my home in Cleveland, Ohio.
And I'm Gina Sutherland, the Certification Director for CSI. I also work remotely, and I am in Reno, Nevada, so excited to be with all of my Pacific time zone friends today. So we wanted to start off by providing a brief overview of the structure of CSI. So on your screen here, you can see we've got CSI Portland in the Northwest region, and just wanted to give you a sense of how we all fit together. So every member is a member of CSI's national organization, and members can choose to join a chapter, and most of them do, because chapters are where your CSI community grows through local education and network building events like what we're doing today. So the chapters are organized into regions. So you all are in the Northwest region, and the regions exist to support the chapters. They each have board representation, which ensures that flow of communication and information between the chapters and CSI's board of directors at the national level. At national, we provide resources, publications, certifications, and an online community at the national level. So together, we all provide value for members, whether they're at the national level or with their core local community. So that's a brief overview of our structure, but we're really here today to focus on what the Cert. We are going to help you make sense of CSI's certifications. So we're going to provide an overview of our 4 certifications, talk a little bit about the certification experience, and then we're going to touch on recertification. We'll have a few special guest appearances, and we'll have some time at the end to hear your questions as well. So first, we're going to touch on why get certified. And you can see 4 of the key reasons up here on your screen. The bottom 2 are more specific to our AECO community, including building greater confidence in your authority as part of the project delivery team. So we have a lot of different reasons why it's beneficial to get certified, but we think it's of the greatest benefit when you hear from your peers. So we've got a short 2-minute video hearing from some of our CDT credential holders about the benefits that they have found from certification. I think we are missing the audio sharing button, so Monica's gonna reset that.
Try that again,
so that we can make sure we've got the audio working for you all.
Project delivery.
Try that one more time. Thanks everybody for your patience. There we go.
I decided to take it because I felt like I wanted to gain a better understanding of the project delivery process and how all the teams come together and how everyone communicates and creates a better project.
Well, it taught me the entire construction process, everything I'd been doing for the past 15 years, explaining why I was doing it that way, and why some of the things I had been doing may or may not have been the right way to do them. So it was confirmation and clarity on some of the processes and procedures that are involved in the entire construction process. So
the CDT gives you this broad base of knowledge about project delivery, about the project team, about your responsibilities, about other members of the team's responsibilities, about the contract documents that rule the work that you do, and make sure that what you're providing to the owner and to the other members of the team is what is expected.
It's helped me do my job better, without a doubt. Going through that process, I learned in much more detail than I had ever been exposed to before, both in prior work experience and through school and preparation for the architecture exams. What contracts are about, how they're prepared, what I need to look for when I'm reviewing them or preparing them. how documents should be properly put together and organized.
You know, really when you're a manufacturer's rep or you're a contractor, architect, specifier, or an owner, whatever your role may be, you know, you're all working together. And I think it's really helpful for everyone to kind of be on the same page. And I do believe that the CDT allows you to kind of achieve that, you know, understanding of everybody's roles in project delivery, and, you know, really just kind of helps with communication as well.
I look at somebody that has a CDT and I say, oh, we can speak the same language now because you know what I'm talking about. And you at least have a baseline understanding of construction documents and the building construction industry and how it works and how these documents play in building structures.
I am hiring young people and training them to become specifiers. So they're not going to have their CDT when they come to work for me. So I make it mandatory that they get it. And as a business owner, I am willing to, I pay for the training so that we have a local chapter training that I pay for, and I pay for their exam. So I believe that strongly in it and wish that other business owners would make it a requirement also.
So CSI has 4 certification programs. Registration opens twice per year, in the spring and in the fall. The spring 2021 registration window is currently open through May 14th, and that's for CDT, CCCA, and CCS. We'll share more later on CCPR and what's happening with that one. Before registering for any exam, though, be sure to download from the CSI Bookstore the free candidate handbook. It is a short but very important read for you before you actually register for any CSI exam. So we'll start by talking about the CDT exam, Construction Documents Technology Certification, which is available for those with at least a high school diploma or equivalent, but we really encourage college level coursework and at least 2 years of experience in project delivery. We highly recommend that. So the full exam content outlines for each of the certifications we'll talk about today are listed in each of the respective handbooks. But here we'll just share the top level knowledge domains, we call them, that are covered on each exam. And we'll include here the percent of the exam focus, the percent of the exam that each one of these domains is given. So I'm going to actually hand it over to Gina for a little fun break for us here.
All right, it is pop quiz time. So we need you guys to type your answer in the chat. The first person with the correct answer to our quiz question is going to win a prize. And our question today is, name one of the source material publications for the CDT exam. And do we have Maddie on the line? She's going to keep an eye on the chat to track who our winner is.
I don't see her, but I can keep track of the chat.
Awesome, great, great.
Oops,
And actually, that was pretty easy. So here we go. Priscilla is our winner. Priscilla, we are going to be sending you a CSI prize after today's session is over. And up on the screen, if we go to the next slide, you'll see what the 3 source materials are for the CDT exam. There is, we got an error on that slide with the 3rd edition having its own bullet point, but it's actually the PDPG 3rd edition as one source material, and then the AIA 201 and EJCDC C700 as being the other 2. So we'll send it back over to Monica now. Congratulations, Priscilla.
And I have to plug a double congratulations for Priscilla, who just recently earned her CCS. So round of applause.
Oh, thank
you. So excited for you. Yes, and there you have it. Here are the CSI Bookstore products that we highly recommend that you have when you're preparing for the CDT exam. The handbook, again, is free. You have the Project Delivery Practice Guide 3rd edition and the CDT Study Workbook, which will soon be rebranded as the Project Delivery Workbook. So I do want to mention, if we don't have a slide for it, but once you register for an exam, you'll be automatically added to a virtual study group. So if you don't have access to an exam prep course in your local chapter, which I know you all do in Portland, if you're struggling to find study buddies, CSI National can help with that. Next up, for the Certified Construction Contract Administrator exam, experience in contract administration is required. And if you already hold a CDT, you aren't required to submit evidence of experience. Without a CDT under your belt, though, we will require 2 letters evidencing that you have the 5 years of industry experience. And here are the CSI Bookstore products that we highly recommend you have when preparing for the Ccca exam. Be sure to grab the free handbook first and then tackle the practice guide. And you'll also note the Ccca study workbook is nearing completion, and we expect it to hit the CSI bookstore this spring. For the Certified Construction Specifier exam, experience in preparing specs is a must. And again, if you have CDT, you are not required to submit reference letters to reflect that experience. And those letters can come from anyone in the industry that has worked with you and is aware of your experience and can attest to that. Here are your current source references for the CCS exam. The free candidate handbook being your starting point, of course. And note that the 2nd edition of the CSPG is underway in conjunction with the CCS study workbook. So those 2 are slated for publication by the end of spring, early summer 2021. Coming soon.
Last but certainly not least is our Certified Construction Product Representative Certification. This is for our product and manufacturer representatives. You may not have heard very much about the CCPR in the past couple of years. It had been paused for research. However, that research is now complete, and we have volunteers who are product representatives who are hard at work writing some new exam questions and authoring some new source materials that is based on the outcomes of that research project. CCPR is coming back. It is on track to return in fall of 2021. So keep an eye out for more details on that certification coming soon. So that's the brief overview of our 4 CSI certifications. And CSI Portland is fortunate to have volunteer leaders who have multiple certifications, and we'd like to invite a couple of them to share their stories, to tell us about their motivation for earning the certifications, the benefits they have found from going through the certification process, as well as to share a couple of their favorite exam prep tips. So Alexander and Melody, take it away. Hopefully we can get them off of mute.
Go, Melody, go.
Ladies first.
We can't quite
she might be talking and sounds far away.
There we go. How about
I
that?
do that all the time.
I have a lot of certifications and yet I struggle with the microphone. I used to complain about a stapler at my last firm. I was like, I can't work this stapler. I have a 5-year degree and I can't work this stapler. Okay, so I was trying to pull up the years that I took my exams because so I have CDT, I have CCS, and I have CCCA. And I actually took the CDT. That was somewhat my introduction to CSI. I was handed a brochure and said, here's this organization, here's the certification, go get it. And I was like, I haven't heard of any of this. This is a lot of letters. Okay. So I joined my local chapter, which at that point I was living in Oklahoma City. So my local chapter was OKC, and they had a CDT study group that was taught by an architect there who ended up being somewhat my mentor. And I still to this day consider him a mentor, and he's somewhat retired now, but it was just a really great opportunity to learn. And I definitely felt like the CDT study classes were, I had taken my AREs. I was kind of newly licensed right around that time. And I really felt like the CDT information helped things really start to click as far as all those roles and responsibilities of the other players. So it filled in some blanks that I felt like were missing from the architectural education and license exam portion of the world. And then after I got my CDT, I moved firms and just, kind of decided on my own to do the CCS path. So I did self-study for both of the upper, or now they're all kind of like when I took the CDT, nothing was an official certification like it is now. These have all been, like put through kind of a rigorous process to become these very official certifications that are recognized, outside of just CSI said this person took a test and passed it. So that was like a really big step that really just happened, I think, a couple of years ago, right? Back when I took CDT, it was kind of, you had to take that as a prerequisite to take the upper exams, but which I think you still have to take that first, but
it's no longer required for CCS or CCPA, but it is recommended.
Okay, yes, it's definitely good information to have as far as the building blocks, I feel like, of some of those other upper or some of those other certifications as well. So yeah, it's definitely a good place to start. And the CCS is a lot more specific information, and it definitely helps if you are actively working on specs a lot as far as familiar with the ins and outs. But I thought the study guides were good, and I joke sometimes with people about some of the differences between the ARE tests, because they had a lot of stuff in the ARE testing that feels like they're trying to trick you, or they're asking you what answer is most correct, and they're listing like 3 that could be right, and you're trying to figure out what's the most correct. So I felt like the CSI exams were definitely more straightforward and direct than the ARE exams. And I actually took the CDT on a Scantron before it was all digital. So that's how many years ago we're talking. I think it might have been, 2006, I think. So then, yeah, I passed my CCS, and I was a little nervous on the Ccca because I kept hearing like, oh yeah, you need all this field experience, which I had experience going through the CA process from the architectural office side of it. And I got to go to, monthly field visits, but I wasn't sure if I had enough. But again, I just kind of studied as much as I could. I tried to kind of keep on a, set aside a certain amount of time, just basically got the study information and kind of broke it down by chapter and was like, okay, I got to back it out, and I want to have time to get through the whole book, and then still have, a few weeks before the test to like go back through things and brush up on stuff. And a friend of mine who, when she took her exam, she basically scheduled a meeting with myself and another CSI member that had that designation to go over things once she had kind of gone through a lot of the basic info. And then she met with us to really break down a lot of the pieces that she might have been like hung up on or needed a little more like talking through. So that's definitely what I would recommend as far as study tips. And I will also say that my certifications are definitely the reason that I have the job that I have now. I work for Dell Tech, and I write content for Master Spec in Divisions 3, 4, and 7. And it wasn't a whole lot of, I didn't feel like I had to jump through a whole lot of hoops, partially because I had a lot of letters on my resume coming in that essentially already told them a lot of what they needed to know about the skills that I needed for the job. So it definitely smoothed the path there. And doing specifications has always been a wonderful thing that I felt like has diversified me as an architect and made me a more valuable and knowledgeable architect. And it's all been really wonderful information that has helped make me better at what I do on a daily basis. So I would definitely highly encourage all of you to get some certifications.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I can only back that up. Until Melody came into town, I was the only one who had the CCS and the CCCA, and I'm like, yay! And then Melody shows up, and I'm like, okay, I guess I have to share this honor.
You're gonna have to find some new letters.
Actually, because I'm a member of SCIP, they gave me the EIO accreditation, which means nothing. It's a joke, right? But it's just like, because I think if you have more than 7 acronyms, you get that one for free. And so that's like what I ended up with. But anyways, yes, it's awesome that Melody is here. She has definitely changed our chapter already. But to the certification. So I did the CDT in 2007. I think I did the ARE in 2001. And I did the CCS twice, yes. I failed in 2015, and it made me so mad that I was gonna like, okay, I'm gonna get this. And I had failed by like 2 points, and I wrote angry letters to CSI and things like that. And so, like what people do when they fail. And so I recertified or tried again in 2016. I passed, yay. And as I had heard that the CCCA is actually fairly close to the CSS, I thought, okay, I'll just throw that one in right behind it. And next year, 2017, I sat for that one, and I passed that one as well. And in terms of what they mean to me, I mean, I'm the head spec writer at Henneberry Eddy, and I think until I haven't, I mean, after I passed the CCS, I actually really started to understand what it means to write specifications. And it really tells you and teaches you to be very precise, and teaches you how all the bits and pieces come together. And yeah, the tests, at least for me, it wasn't easy. It took me twice, two approaches, but it teaches you precision, and also the path towards it. So like teaches you diligence, and that was very, very good for me. And then the CCCA, as we were just talking about it in the breakout room, I think that's more like the certification I would recommend architects to get, because it creates this true interplay between the contract and Division 1. And as an architect, you can actually really use that, and it's good knowledge. I know a bunch of architects that have the CCCA, and so if you just want to get more like deeper into the contracts and deeper into the interplay of all the documents, that's probably the one to get. In terms of recommendation, how to study, I had like a full family going here, 2 children, all kinds of chores. So I basically broke my approach to the test down into, I would say, an hour and a half for 4 months every night that I sat down. And once in a while, I think every 2 weeks, I took an evening off. But I very consistently worked my way through the book and studied it. And for the CCS, you read multiple books and multiple contracts. And I think to break it up into tiny little pieces actually really helped me to study this fairly complex material. And yeah, I am really enjoying that I have these 2 certifications. It took me a long time actually to convince my firm that I knew more about contract documents than anybody there. And eventually I did, and I just finished to publishing the CA manual for the firm. So, I mean, it's not just that you are getting better at what you do, you can also start influencing the place where you're at, and you can create manuals and give directions on how the other members of the firm ideally are doing contract as administration, which unfortunately, if you have done a lot of CA, which I have, is not typically done necessarily the right way, but it makes a ton of sense to do it the right way. And it's so like, I feel myself as one of the people so like pushing the industry, especially the construction industry, more and more into how it's done the right way. And once everybody understands that, it's actually much easier how to all get along and communicate with each other. That's it.
That's great. Thanks for your input. Really great stuff. Right, so next up, I'm going to tell you how you would go about registering. So in order to register for an exam or even to find information on certifications you've already earned, you'll need to log into the CSI website and visit your My Certifications page. So there are two ways to navigate there. You may want to click the Certifications tab where you see the small green star, and then click the My Certifications page in the drop down from that tab. Or you can open your dashboard as you see here. This is what an open dashboard looks like, and click the My Certifications button with the green star. And I want to emphasize that although we won't send you snail mail very often, you definitely don't want to miss receiving your new certification in the mail. So be sure to update your CSI profile with your current address. And you can do that by clicking My CSI Profile from the dashboard that you see here, where we have the purple star. Next up, this is what you'll see when you arrive at your My Certifications page, and you'll click Get Certified to proceed with the registration. And remember that CSI exams are only offered in the US territories, and Canada. If you do submit an application for the CCS or CCCA and you don't hold a CDT and haven't submitted the letters to us, we won't be able to process your application until we have those letters. So be sure to send in the letters ahead of registration. Those will actually come to me via email, and then I can more quickly process your application.
So once your application is approved, you'll receive an authorization to test email from CSI, or an ATT as we like to call it for short. That's going to give you all of the next steps you need to do to get ready for your exam, including scheduling your exam. You'll have two options for taking the exam. You can do it either in person at a Prometric testing center, and Prometric is our testing partner, or you can do it virtually from your home or office. A few tips if you're going to be doing it virtually. Be sure to visit Prometric's website and do the system check before you schedule your virtual appointment. You'll also see on their website some tips for preparing your environment. So you're going to need to do things like clearing off your desk so that your device is the only thing that is on your desk when it comes to your test time. Also, when scheduling your virtual exam, make sure that you leave a little bit of a buffer. So plan to schedule it at least a week prior to the end of that particular exam window. While most people who take a virtual exam are able to complete it successfully, there are still occasional hiccups with connectivity or other technical challenges. So leaving that buffer gives you the potential opportunity of being able to reschedule and complete your exam prior to the end of that exam window. You'll also want to visit Prometric's website at prometric.com/CSI for some additional helpful information. They will walk you through what the security check-in process will be like. If you're testing in person, they always are constantly updating their COVID protocol information, as well as they have a number of frequently asked questions. Now, after you complete your exam, you'll immediately receive a notice of completion. However, you will not immediately receive your exam results. You need to be patient. It'll be about a 6 to 8 weeks wait after the completion of that exam window. I know that that can feel like eternity when you're waiting for results, but it is actually to your benefit. During that time frame, a professional psychometrician, who is basically like a testing science and metrics whiz, will be collectively looking at all of the exam results and the performance of the exam questions. And part of that analysis means that they will identify any low performing questions and dig deeper into those. And in some cases, that may mean that a question might get tossed out and not impact your score. So that's an example of one of the reasons why there's a long wait, but again, it's to your benefit. We can certainly share more about what that testing process and experience is like, but again, we like you all to hear it from your peers, and we'd now like to introduce our next special guest, which is CSI Portland's very own Caitlin Morgan, CDT, Take it away, Caitlin.
Hello. So I'm actually in Charlottesville, Virginia, but I'm like really active with the Portland chapter and also with the Central Virginia CSI chapter. So I see a bunch of familiar faces, but yeah, so about the CDT, I graduated from James Madison University in May of 2020 with a BFA in architectural design. So at JMU, they did not have an accredited architecture degree. So a lot of my background in architecture was a lot of architectural theory and art history and studio art courses. But I had been working at an internship for about 2 years by the time I graduated, all at the same place. And so when I graduated, I did not have much technical experience, but I did have a very strong like study ethic and study, you know, just I was in that mindset for school, you know. So like I said, when I graduated, not much technical experience, but I was working full time when I graduated. So as soon as I graduated, I went to my first CSI meeting. And let's see, that was in May. And then in July, I had registered and started studying for the CDT. I didn't know much about it. I kind of just, it was kind of like with Melody, I kind of jumped in, it was kind of handed to me. I didn't know much about CSI, almost nothing about the CDT. But I knew that if I wanted to learn more, CDT was where I needed to start. So as I was working full time and studying a lot of the time, I started to pick up on connections between what I was learning in the office, in the field, and what I was learning in the textbook. So that really helped me get a grasp on the things that I didn't learn in college, but would be learning in the field without, it was kind of like having a handbook for suddenly working your first big kid job, your first adult job. Because things I was learning every day, sometimes my boss and mentor, he would say, if you want to learn more about this, like check out this chapter in the book, or this is where we are in this project, we're in this phase. So being able to draw those connections was, you know, really helpful. And so I was studying, you know, not every day, but every Saturday I was spending almost all day studying. And I think I ended up with like 1,500 flashcards because like that's just how I studied, you know, basically memorizing these flashcards. And I had the PDPG and I also had the handbook, which was free. And then I also used the workbook, which was really helpful. And I was a part of the, the study group through CSI. So that was also helpful, just constantly seeing these messages and knowing that like, you know, there was this other community and if I ever had a question, I could just hop on there. And it also helped me, you know, not forget that I was registered for this exam, getting the constant emails because there would always be someone asking a question and I would be like, oh crap, I don't know the answer to that. I need to be studying again. So that was just kind of jumping in and immersing myself with CSI and CDT really helped. But then by the time it got, you know, down to the exam, I took the exam in person at Prometric on like the last day of the study window or the exam window. And so having an extra like 2 months to study when other people who were also taking it at my office were like already taking it before me. Let me just say, I'm glad I had an extra month or so to study because getting that, you know, that cram, you know, I just graduated from college. And so I kind of had this cramming, studying mindset and it really helped. I don't recommend it, but, you know, I passed, here I am. So in general, just after I graduated, being able to instantly draw those connections between what I was learning and what I didn't really learn in college was really helpful. So I'm glad I took it. I've already bought the book for CCCA. I don't have like a set time table for when I'm going to take it, but yeah, I'm really excited to keep studying with it because it was an easy process. It was painless, but it was only because I set the time aside rather than, you know, mentally cramming for it. So yeah, I'm glad I did it, and I definitely recommend it, but definitely pace out your studying.
Great tip. Thank you for sharing your story, Caitlin. We appreciate that. So you've done it. You've earned your certification. What comes next? Caitlin, I hope the first thing that you did was celebrate by telling your friends, your coworkers, your family the good news. Definitely take that moment to celebrate with all of your loved ones or close coworkers, because it's a process to go through it. It's a journey. And when you earn that accomplishment, you want to just really enjoy that moment. And then you want to accept your digital badge. So digital badges are like a verified online resume for your certification. And when you accept it is where the value comes in, because someone sees your badge and clicks through, and we're going to see, actually, Caitlin was kind enough to let us take a screenshot of her sharing her badge. And if someone were to go to Caitlin's LinkedIn and see in the, I think it's called licenses and certification section on the main profile page on LinkedIn, and they click through it, it's going to be jam-packed full of data. So somebody can click through and see what it means to be a CDT or a CCS or a CCPR. It shows all of the competencies that are associated with that certification, and it also verifies that the certification is up to date and currently valid. So we highly recommend going through the process of just logging into Credly Acclaim is our badge provider. So you'd get the email directly from them, and then it walks you through the process of how to share it. And if any of you have already earned your certifications but missed out on accepting your badge, just reach out to Monica or me, and we'll be happy to assist you with that. And now we're going to turn it back over to Monica, who has one more pop quiz opportunity for us all.
Okay, everyone, get your typing fingers ready to chat in your answer. And the next question regarding recertification: how many learning units are needed for CSI recertification? We'll take
Mark was fast.
I think he's recently recertified, so.
Getting ready to, actually.
Awesome. Okay, 24. All right, and that is the correct answer. 24 learning units every 3 years. So Mark, be sure to watch your mailbox for a special gift from CSI. Thanks for participating.
Thank you.
So that brings us to recertification, which, as we said, will take place every 3 years for you if you want to keep your certifications active. So be sure to mark your calendar with your recertification due date or due dates if you have more than one credential, and our marketing team will send you tons of reminders, but you know, as we don't rely on snail mail to get the word out, so be sure to have your current email address in your CSI profile. And if you've unsubscribed from CSI emails, would recommend resubscribing. We have our member services team standing by to help out with things of that nature, and they're available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And I also want to talk about some important reminders for recertification. We ask that your LUs or learning units are not older than 3 years at the time of application. I don't believe the system will allow you to submit anything older than that. Also, if you have more than one credential, if you have two, we'll allow you to use up to 50% or 12 learning units for recertification of each. So you can have some overlap there. We also highly recommend you log your learning regularly. So rather than waiting until the last minute and forgetting what you did, try to go in, log in regularly, upload your learning units, and the system will actually calculate how close you are to that 24 number. Also note, we do accept AIA credits for all recertifications. You can easily upload your AIA transcript as a PDF, so that's a really nice time saver. And we do have a tutorial video on the website, on the recertification website that you see on the screen there. So be sure to check that out if you need a short training session on how to upload learning units. We also have a great video on how to find your certification, recertification due date, which it's really simple, but sometimes it's just nice to see a quick video to show you how to do it. And if you have not checked out CSI's Learning Library yet, be sure to dive in and see what we have to offer here. And we'll mention that as a CSI member, you can get free or discounted learning through the Learning Library. And we're constantly updating the content here. You'll want to make sure you're logged in before you go to the Learning Library, which you can see access through the Learning tab. And this is what you'll see, just a small sampling of some of the courses within the Learning Library catalog. And so as some of you know, I see some volunteers on the call today. I have the pleasure, Gina and I have the pleasure of working with the most amazing volunteers in the industry. And without our chapter leaders, region leaders, exam writers, study group leaders, the list goes on. We simply would not be the strong organization that we are today without you all. So with that, I'll invite you all to jump into the CSI volunteer pool. And you keep an eye on the weekly newsletter for announcements and new opportunities that you might enjoy. We hope you'll learn, you'll teach, you'll network, and then as a bonus, you'll earn learning units toward recertifying your credentials. So I look forward to working with you all very soon. And at this point, we will take your questions.
And you can chat them in, or can everyone come off of mute on their own, or do they need to raise their hand? Not sure how this one is set up.
Anybody can unmute themselves to ask a question.
Okay, great.
So Gina, as I mentioned, I have mine comes up June 18th, but I've got all my learning units earned. When will I be able to submit them for approval? Because I see that there isn't a submit button on my page yet.
So you can log your learning units at any point in time, and we
Right.
recommend logging them as you earn them because that makes it so much easier when it comes time to recertify. And then you need to wait till your recertification window opens in order to actually submit and finalize your recertification. So if you have a June date, your recertification window will open on March 1st. So
Okay.
you'll have from March 1st to June 30th to complete that process at the $140 rate. And then if anyone on the in today's meeting is recertifying in the winter time frame, your recertification window opens September 1st, and you'll have until January 15th of 2022 to complete yours.
Yes, and there is a small period, what we call the reinstatement window, directly after the due date. We don't recommend waiting until then because obviously the price bumps up a little bit. And then once that period ends, it becomes even more kind of difficult to reactivate your credentials. So that's why we keep, again, having our marketing team send out those reminders that you want to really stay on top of your continuing education. Do we have, I think we might have some folks on this call that are already registered for spring. I don't know if you want to show hands or have any questions about the exam cycle that we're in now. So we have from May the 3rd through June 4th will be the actual window of availability to sit for the exam. Last spring, we had what we call the longest exam cycle ever due to COVID. We just kept extending the dates of the exam window. So it was sort of an unusually long window. And so that's why we had folks who sat for their exam maybe in early May and some sat in July. So that waiting period for the results really felt like a long time. So we hope we won't have another year like 2020.
Yeah, and that was due to some of the testing centers needing to be closed and having to reschedule. Prometric had like 500,000 testing candidates worldwide that they had to reschedule, which is why we had extended that window. But again, we're hoping to be able to stick with the schedule this time around, which will make that wait for your results seem not quite so long. Monica, do you know when the study group will begin for the spring cycle?
Yes, I believe they are opening next week. So we currently have over 150 candidates that are already registered to take exams, and typically the CDT group is sort of the larger or largest bunch of candidates, and with the CCS and CCCA being much smaller. But we have actually some wonderful volunteers that are stepping up to help lead those groups and come up with a plan of, let's read this chapter by this date and bring our questions together and meet on a Zoom on this day and sort of coordinate what works for the candidates.
Oh, Melody, thank you for sharing the CSI Portland study session schedule and link in the chat. That's great.
A quick question. So this was kind of just concerning like the last CDT cycle, and I don't know if it's like that for future cycles, but at the end of the testing window, a couple weeks later, we got an email saying that our results were in, but they were earlier than were anticipated, and got an email from CSI saying they were accidentally released early. But I was wondering, like when I got my Prometric scores, it showed me how well I did in the different categories. So I was wondering if the results just hadn't been reviewed by CSI, or like what was the effect of them being released early?
Great question. So Prometric finished up their analysis early, and there's various levels of post-exam window analysis that our exams go through, and the CDT was scheduled for one of the less time-intensive analyses last cycle. So the psychometrician finished it up and then sent them out, which happened to be, I think it was New Year's Eve or the day before, which was great news for those who passed to be able to end the year with some happy news. But CSI staff hadn't reviewed the results yet. Typically what would happen is the psychometrician would send the results to CSI, and we can also give it a once over. We don't have the psychometrician's skills to do their level of data analysis, but sometimes we're able to catch things. For example, if someone had to do a second testing session because of a technical glitch with the virtual exam, we want to make sure they're only getting the results from the completed version and not from the incomplete version. So we always review the results for things like that. And that hadn't happened, as well as our office wasn't staffed. We closed over the holidays, and we like to make sure that when exam results go out, that we're fully staffed, that our member services team is ready and waiting to take calls from people who have questions about their results, and that Monica and I are both available that day to also be talking with the candidates who received their results and have questions about them. So it was unexpected for them to go as early as they did, but Prometric did verify to us that they had completed their full psychometric analysis. A second psychometrician had also reviewed the results, so everything was good on their end. And we met with them after that just to make sure that everything truly was fine, and to find out what happened, so none of us are in that situation again where we're surprised by the results going out so early. Now going forward, while we say 6 to 8 weeks, should we be in a position where 4 weeks after they have everything ready to go and we have done our analysis, we certainly could get those results out earlier than the 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay, because I had taken my exam December 4th and then I got my results on December 30th. So I was like, oh, this is great. And then I saw that it was a mistake. And I was like, were they not reviewed? I passed, but are they going to like revoke it? So
yeah, we had quite a few inquiries from people wondering if it was accurate because they weren't expecting it so soon. So we were glad Prometric was able to verify that indeed it had gone through their complete analysis.
Okay, I was just making sure. I didn't know if that was normal or just because of like COVID, but
yeah, it was just one of those things. Great question. Any other questions?
I guess for your reference about that week between Christmas and New Year's, CSI offices are closed. So we shut down during that week. And that's why if, let's say you have a recertification that's historically, we would have made it due December 31st. We've bumped it out a little to the January 15th date, so we have a little more time to process. And during the holidays, I think we're all sort of preoccupied with, if you're not taking time off work, you're with family, you're celebrating. So hopefully you can just, get all your LUs in and submit your application well before the deadlines. You don't have to be worrying about doing that on the holidays. But we do make that extra time. And as I mentioned, there's the reinstatement window if you're a little bit late, but save some money and recertify on time. And I'll mention too, there are three periods of the registration window. So we are in the early bird registration now. The lowest rate for an exam will be the early bird member rate. So after March 10th, the prices bump up a bit and then they bump up one more time. So we are really in the best window for if you're sure you're going to take an exam, now is the time to get your registration in for the best price. Student exams are always $165 throughout the entire window. So students have a little bit of the option to take their time to think about if they really want to register and not get penalized for taking the extra time to decide.
And we have one last slide with our contact information. Monica, if you want to pull that up while we're waiting for any final questions to come in. Otherwise, if we don't have that slide handy, we can just pop our information in the chat.
How's that?
There we go. So here's how to reach us either through the member services email and phone number with their times, or you can reach out to Monica or me directly at the emails and our direct phone numbers that are listed up here on the screen as well. So we are happy to talk with you anytime you have questions. We do actually answer our phones, but if for some reason you get our voicemails, it's probably because we're in one of our mini meetings. Like you all, we spend a lot of time in meetings. Oh, we do have a question in the chat. Can we hear more on the differences between the CCS and CCCA? Would it be fair to think of them as one prepares the project manual and one enforces it out? That's actually a really great question for our CCS and CCCA multiple credential holders. So Alexander or Melody, would one of you like to take the question from Hannah?
Sure. Yeah, I was waiting for Alexander just in case. So yeah, I mean, essentially the CCS is the Certified Construction Specifier. So that's going to focus a lot more on really knowing your way around the specs and, you know, part 1, 2, and 3 and what goes where and all those ins and outs. So yes, and that really is, yeah, it's like I don't really know of many, you know, like college classes on how to write specs or a lot of other great references. I know there's a couple books, but yeah, I mean, like that's really one of the best ways to kind of learn how to be a spec writer through the CCS. And then, yeah, I think Alexander kind of picked up earlier on the Cca is so good for people who aren't even necessarily like writing specs, but dealing with the contract side of things. So, and I remember, and I kind of talked about this in the breakout room a little bit. When I was reading through the CCCA manual, I kept telling my boss, like, we're not doing it right. We were putting out, you know, these made up like construction bulletins and documents that I was like, what is this? What is this? And so, yeah, the CCCA is really, really great when you are administering the construction side of the contract. You, as the architect, you're serving as the owner's representative. You know, you don't have any direct contract between the architect and contractor, but you have a relationship. And really clearly having a good idea of like how things are supposed to work. You know, when a dispute comes up, that's something that's covered in the CCCA manual. You know, how do you work through the process of resolving things? How do you, and I have referred back to the CCCA book that I had many times as I was going through my next construction administration process. I was like, okay, hold on, this is happening. Let me see what this book says I should do next, because it was just a handy, you know, guide as far as ideas on, you know, just, yeah, like what options or things you can proceed with when you're faced with a situation that you may not know quite how to handle during construction. So, you know, the specs define all those things that you're going to get during the CA timeframe. So they're outlining all those shop drawings, and I can remember architects coming up to me while they're doing CA, maybe I wrote the spec, and they're going, do we really need a shop drawing for where all the access panels are going to go? And I'm like, no, I think that was, that's, you know, something that was in the software that I used, and I think I clicked on it almost as a like, will anything happen? Will they even submit this? And when I first started working there, they had some things like they were asking for all the samples to be submitted like at one time. So they wanted all the exterior samples. And I came across this in Division 1, and I went to the other specifier and was like, does this ever happen? Did the contractors give you this? Like you've asked for it? And he was like, no. And I'm like, well, then why do you keep putting it in here? Like, don't. We got to clean that out. So it really helped. Both of those really help you start to ask the right questions, or think of the things that help you ask the right questions to really work through a lot of the nuance things that come up during the whole process. So yeah, CCCA is great for, I wish more licensed architects would take that exam, even if they think they're not really in the spec side of it. The CCCA is some really, really helpful stuff for how to handle just all those little things that come up during construction.
Great, thank you.
One thing I noticed, sorry to add a couple more things, but Melody pretty much totally grabbed it. One thing I noticed was that both study materials, or both books pretty much, offered a very broad basis of knowledge, like for contract types and building types that I probably at that point when I was studying and wasn't really involved with, but like 3 or 4 years later, suddenly I do a lot of public work, and oh yeah, this was in there too. And so I can go back to it, and I've learned it at some point, and they're really good resources. And yeah, just to reiterate what Melody said, I mean, the CCS is definitely to become a spec writer. I was never taught to be a spec writer. I just showed up at a bunch of CSI meetings, and 2 weeks later, somebody asked me, hey, you have interested in spec writing? And I'm like, yeah, what is that? And they're like, yeah, okay, you're the spec writer now. I'm like, okay, great, thank you. So, but it really helps you to learn how to organize that information. And because they're both like sort of like organizational tools, it also helps you organize, so like not the rest of your life, but many other aspects within architecture. So I think it reaches much further beyond the CCS and the CSS and the Cca pure education there. But yeah, that's what I had.
Great, thank you both.
Good question from Hillary regarding do you need to be an architect or have an architectural background for CCS? And Gina and I won't tell you, well, if you don't have this title, you shouldn't sit for the exam on any of the exams. We do in the handbooks outline some of the more common job titles of people who take the exams, but it sounds to me like if you're, working in the construction industry, I would say yes. I'll defer to Gina on that, but I think
I have a little bit of
see a hand
input.
raised.
I have a friend who is a specifier at Perkins and Will, and she's a CSI member, and her background is in English. Her her undergrad degree is in English. And Susan Bliss, who was featured in the video earlier, she is an amazing woman out of Texas who is training people how to be specifiers, and a lot of them are English majors. So it's, it is some wordsmithing. A lot of architects kind of are hesitant to delve into the specs. They see it as almost like the legalese, like a little bit of like, almost like lawyer speak type stuff. And I don't consider it that way, but every once in a while I would send an email to a coworker and be accused of like talking like a lawyer. So, if words are your thing, if detail is your thing, and in my opinion, if you have experience in this industry, a lot of that can go into different realms pretty easily. There's a lot of overlap. So if you've got experience on the subcontractor side, and this stuff isn't completely like Greek to you, then I think you already have a leg up on maybe even an English major. So I would definitely say it's worth exploring and just digging in a little more to see if it's something that you really like. I would definitely if you dig into it and you're not feeling it, it's definitely, it's like a lot of people just think the specs are super grueling and like, I don't know, laser focused, like, and it's not, I don't want to like turn anybody off, but I guess I don't want people to be scared of going into that realm. It's something that is more achievable than it's not this super high pedestal that you need to be afraid of, but it does take work to an experience to learn it and to get into it. And you do need to hopefully be passionate about it and love it to move further with it. That's what I was trying to say.
Great, thank you so much, Melody. And we had a question from Safari in the chat. Hopefully you saw Monica's reply in there. I will add to that while the exams are not different for students versus professionals, I think it makes it of even greater importance that the students participate in some sort of study group or course, because for students who haven't been working in the fields yet, who have just been full-time students 100% focused on their coursework, sometimes not having that experience in the real world can make the exam more challenging. So it's really helpful to hear the perspective from the professionals who are part of your study group or course, and be able to learn from them as well as part of your prep.
Well, Gina, that's interesting because when I took my CDT study with Charisse, she said, forget everything that you've already learned in the industry, and this is the way it needs to be taught.
It is always the challenge, like going back to the book, and we hear that a lot. Mark, you've been one of our exam reviewers, as our exam reviewers are going through it and having to think, well, this is the way we do it in the field, but this is what the practice guide says. So yeah, that's a good point too. Any other questions? Everyone's probably itching to get outdoors while the sun is still shining.
Not a question, but I just want to say thank you so much, Gina and Monica, for joining us and putting together the presentation. I know you guys developed that on your own. It's been really great to work with you guys and to meet you guys and have you present for us today.
Thank you for having us, and please reach out to us anytime if you have any questions that we can assist you with.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Yes, thanks for spending time with us tonight. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.